When I opened my own front door after a grueling 12-hour shift, I found my older brother sitting in my living room, surrounded by unpacked boxes. Before I could even ask what was going on, my mother handed me a hand-drawn floor plan and said, "Your brother needs executive space to restart his life, so you'll be moving into the basement guest room, and he's taking your master suite." I bought this four-bedroom house completely on my own at 26, letting my parents stay temporarily while they downsized. Now, they were treating me like an unwanted trespasser in my own home. I didn't scream, and I didn't shed a single tear. I took the floor plan, walked back out to my car, and called my real estate attorney. Less than 72 hours later, two sheriff deputies posted an official legal eviction notice right on my front door. My name is Rachel. I'm 27 years old, an architectural engineer, and if there's one thing 5 years of designing structural foundations taught me, it's that a building is only as stable as the boundaries you set around it. I applied that exact principle to my personal life when I bought my dream four-bedroom home completely on my own. I bought the house at 26. It was a stunning, mid-century modern property with floor-to-ceiling windows, a spacious backyard, and a light-filled master suite that I had meticulously designed as my personal sanctuary. I didn't rely on a trust fund, a cosigner, or a penny of family money to pull it off. I built my career through 80-hour work weeks, strict budgeting, and endless late nights analyzing blueprints while my peers were out partying. That house was more than just real estate to me. It was the physical proof of my independence, my hard work, and my resilience. 6 months after I moved in, my parents approached me with a humble request. They were planning to sell their oversized, high-maintenance family home to downsize for retirement. They asked if they could temporarily move into my fully furnished basement guest suite while they finalized the sale of their property and found a smaller condo. Because I loved them, I agreed without hesitation. I didn't charge them a single cent in rent, covered all the utility bills myself, and even remodeled the lower level so they would have their own private kitchen, bathroom, and living area. It was supposed to be a short-term favor, a 3-month transition period at most. What I didn't realize was that my generosity was about to be mistaken for weakness. My parents never actively looked for a new home. Instead, they settled in, making themselves completely comfortable on my dime. But the real nightmare didn't begin until my older brother, Brandon, the lifelong golden child who had never held a steady job or taken responsibility for his own life, decided he wanted a piece of my sanctuary, too. I came home on a rainy Tuesday evening after a grueling 12-hour shift at the firm, completely exhausted and looking forward to the peace of my master bedroom. But as soon as I opened my front door, the heavy smell of stale takeout food and cigarette smoke hit me like a wall. In the entryway sat 6 massive, scuffed cardboard boxes, blocking the hallway. Standing in my kitchen, casually drinking a beer straight from my fridge, was my 30-year-old brother, Brandon. He hadn't bothered to call, text, or ask permission. He had simply packed up his entire apartment after getting evicted for unpaid rent, loaded his car, and moved straight into my house. Before I could even process the sight of him, my mother walked out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, with a bright, triumphant smile on her face. Brandon grinned, leaning against my granite countertop like he owned the place. "Hey, sis," he said casually. "Hope you don't mind, I'm staying here for a bit. The apartment market is crazy right now." "A bit?" I asked, looking back and forth between them. "Brandon, you can't just move in without talking to me first. This isn't a hotel." My mother's warm smile instantly vanished, replaced by a cold, disapproving glare. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a neatly folded piece of paper, and handed it to me. It was a printed floor plan of my home that she had drawn herself. "Rachel, don't start being difficult," my mother said in a firm, commanding tone. "Your brother needs space to restart his life and get his business ideas off the ground. The basement guest room is too cramped for him and his gear. So, we've decided that you will move your things downstairs into the basement suite, and Brandon is taking your master suite." I stared at her in utter shock, completely unable to speak. "You want me to move out of my own master bedroom? In the house I bought?" "He's your older brother, Rachel," she snapped back, without a hint of shame. He needs executive personal space to feel respected while he gets back on his feet. You're single and working all day anyway. You don't need all that space. Family supports family. Over the next 2 weeks, my house transformed into a complete war zone, and I was treated like an unwanted trespasser in my own home. Brandon didn't just take over, he invaded. He ignored every boundary I tried to set, leaving piles of dirty dishes in the sink, playing loud video games until 3 in the morning, and inviting his noisy friends over to drink in my living room without ever asking. When I tried to change the smart lock codes to regain control, my father threw a massive fit, accusing me of locking my own parents out and threatening to call the police on me for harassment. My mother enabled his every move, cooking him elaborate meals while leaving my groceries to rot or eating them herself. Whenever I tried to confront Brandon about his behavior, my parents would instantly jump to his defense, bombarding me with extreme guilt trips. "After everything we did raising you, this is how you treat your brother?" my mother would yell, her voice dripping with venom. "You're just a cold, heartless landlord who cares more about money and square footage than your own blood." I tried to keep my head down, working extended hours at the office just to avoid the toxic environment waiting for me at home. But the final breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon when I returned home early to grab a set of critical blueprints for a client presentation. I walked into my home office, a dedicated space where I kept my drafting table, high-end computers, and years of irreplaceable architectural models. The door was wide open, and the room was completely unrecognizable. Brandon had stripped my professional drafting table to use as a makeshift desk for his triple-monitor gaming setup. Crumpled energy drink cans and greasy pizza boxes covered my pristine workspace. Worse than the mess, my heart completely shattered when I looked at the trash can in the corner. Piled inside were my delicate, handcrafted balsa wood architectural models, projects I had spent hundreds of hours constructing during university and early in my career. Brandon had literally crushed them to make room for his oversized gaming chair. When I confronted him, he just shrugged and said, "It was just cardboard junk, Rachel. I needed space for my stream." That was the exact moment my patience died and my strategy began. I didn't yell. I didn't smash his gaming setup, and I didn't give them the explosive reaction they were undoubtedly expecting. Years of engineering had taught me that when a structure is compromised, you don't fight the weight, you methodically remove the load. I simply took out my phone, took crisp, high-resolution photographs of the destroyed architectural models, the trash-strewn office, the unauthorized boxes in my hallway, and the beer cans cluttering the kitchen. I walked back out to my car, drove straight to a quiet coffee shop downtown, and called Mr. Harrison, a veteran real estate attorney specializing in property rights and residential disputes. An hour later, I was sitting in his office, laying out the hard evidence: the deed to my home registered solely under my name, the mortgage statements paid exclusively from my personal account, and the utility bills tied to my credit card. I showed him the video footage from my smart doorbell proving Brandon had moved in without my consent, alongside the photographs of property damage. "Since there's no lease agreement and they aren't paying rent, your parents are technically guests who have overstayed their welcome, and your brother is an illegal occupant," Mr. Harrison explained calmly, drafting a series of documents on his screen. "We will issue formal 30-day notices to vacate for your parents, and an immediate notice of trespass and eviction for your brother. To prevent my family from attempting to manipulate me emotionally or claim I was acting unlawfully, Mr. Harrison advised hiring a professional property management firm to handle the service of the notices and oversee the transition." I signed the retainer, paid the fees, and officially turned the management of my own home over to a neutral third party. When I returned home that evening, I acted as if nothing had happened. I smiled politely, passed my mother in the hallway, and went down to the basement guest room where I was temporarily sleeping. For the next 48 hours, I let them revel in their delusion of victory. They believed they had broken my spirit, successfully pushed me out of my own master suite, and claimed my home as their own. They had no idea that behind my quiet compliance, the legal machinery was already turning, and their time in my sanctuary was officially running out. On Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m., 2 uniformed sheriff deputies, accompanied by a process server from the property management company, arrived at my front door. My mother opened the door in her bathrobe, expecting a package delivery. Instead, the process server stepped forward and formally served her, my father, and Brandon with official legal notices to vacate the premises. Brandon, who was sitting at the kitchen table in his pajamas, sprang up in utter disbelief as a deputy handed him an immediate notice of trespass and a court date for illegal occupancy. The moment the officers stepped back, the house exploded into absolute chaos. My mother rushed down the basement stairs, her face pale with a mix of shock and fury, holding the legal papers in her trembling hands. "Rachel, what is the meaning of this?" she screamed, her voice cracking. "You hired deputies to serve your own parents? Are you completely insane?" Brandon barged in right behind her, his face dark with rage. "You think you can just throw me out using the cops?" he yelled, stepping toward me aggressively. One of the deputies, who had remained near the entryway to ensure peace, immediately stepped between us, his hand resting calmly near his belt. "Sir, back up," the officer commanded in a firm, authoritative voice. "This is a lawful notice. You have no legal lease or tenancy rights here. If you cause a disturbance, you will be removed immediately." My father stood in the hallway, completely speechless, staring at the official court seal on the documents. "I didn't throw you out," I said, looking my mother straight in the eyes with absolute composure. "You made the choice to treat my home like your personal property and my space like garbage. You had 3 months to find a condo, but you chose to stay, invite Brandon to move in without my permission, and destroy my professional work. We are your family," my mother sobbed, switching instantly to emotional manipulation. "If you do this, you are dead to us. We will disown you, and everyone in the family will know what a heartless monster you are. All future communication regarding your move-out timeline will go directly through my attorney, Mr. Harrison," I replied calmly, handing her his business card. "You have 30 days. Brandon has 48 hours. The next 48 hours were a tense, quiet countdown, but law enforcement made sure there was no room for intimidation. On Saturday morning, 2 sheriff deputies returned to oversee Brandon's complete removal from the property. Brandon packed his belongings in bitter silence, throwing his clothes into trash bags while my father watched helplessly. Brandon tried to leave behind several broken pieces of furniture and heavy boxes of junk, but the deputy firmly reminded him that everything under his name had to be cleared immediately. By noon, Brandon's car was stuffed to the brim, and he sped out of my driveway, casting one last hateful glare in my direction. He was forced to move into a cheap, extended-stay motel down the highway, paying out of his own pocket for the first time in years. My parents spent their remaining 30 days in near total isolation in the basement suite. They realized that any attempt to confront me, damage the house, or cause a scene would result in immediate legal action and forfeit their remaining time. Predictably, my mother tried to weaponize the rest of the extended family against me. Within days, my phone began blowing up with furious text messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins accusing me of being an ungrateful daughter who put her own parents out on the street. Instead of arguing, I compiled a single digital folder containing the door camera footage of Brandon's unannounced arrival, photos of my destroyed architectural models, and the signed legal agreements showing I had housed my parents rent-free for months. I posted a private link directly into the extended family group chat with a short note. "Here is the truth of what happened in my home. Judge for yourselves." The group chat went dead silent. Several relatives immediately deleted their angry messages, and 2 of my aunts reached out privately to apologize, admitting they had been completely lied to by my mother. On the final day of their notice, a professional moving company arrived to pack my parents' belongings. Escorted by the property management agent, my parents handed over their keys, walked down the driveway without looking back, and moved into a small, budget-friendly rental apartment funded entirely by the proceeds of their old house sale. After the moving truck drove away, I walked through my quiet, empty home. I hired a team of professional cleaners and contractors to scrub the carpets, repair the drywall, and repaint my home office, permanently erasing every trace of their chaos. It took 2 full weeks to restore my home, but the moment the contractors finished painting the master suite, a profound sense of peace settled over the house. Sitting in my sunlit home office, Surrounded by fresh blueprints and newly constructed architectural models, I took a deep breath and realized something vital. My home was finally mine again. Reclaiming my space wasn't just about square footage or legal deeds. It was about taking complete control of my life and refusing to let toxic family dynamics dictate my self-worth. For years, I had operated under the false belief that being a good daughter meant accepting disrespect, sacrificing my own happiness, and letting my boundaries be walked all over to keep the peace. But true peace doesn't come from accommodating entitlement. It comes from standing firm in your own boundaries, no matter who tries to push them. My life has changed dramatically since that Thursday morning. I no longer live with the constant anxiety of walking into my own home, wondering what new demand or conflict is waiting for me. My master suite is once again my private sanctuary, and my home office is filled with the quiet energy of creativity and hard work. My parents and Brandon learned a harsh, necessary lesson about respect and consequences, and while we no longer speak, I carry no bitterness or regret. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to lock the door against people who only enter your life to break things down. Setting hard boundaries didn't make me a heartless monster. It made me a woman who respects her own sacrifices. Today, when I turn the key in my front door after a long day at work, I don't feel stress or dread. I feel absolute freedom, safety, and pride. I built this life with my own hands, and I will never let anyone make me feel like a stranger in my own home again.